Hello everybody, welcome to Osrosty Budcast. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and drop a like. Also, just want to say thank you for 100,000 subscribers. It took a little bit longer than I hoped it would, but hey, we eventually got here. I also want to give credit to Rudy for helping me pull this channel back from the dead. He's definitely made a difference, and I think you guys have noticed it. I went to the Lakers-Grizzlies game last night, and it was a very good game and a very disappointing game for the Los Angeles Lakers, and I wanted to talk about it. Here's my proof that I went. I got apparently it's called a growl towel. Very creative. Anywho, talk about this game. I'm not going to talk about the narrative around Ja and whether or not the Memphis Grizzlies are better without him, because I'm going to be doing a main channel video on that will be out a few hours after this one goes up, so look forward to that. But the first player that I want to talk about, the player that is going to be the guy in the title, Anthony Davis, was absolutely terrible in this one, and I would say that is frankly the reason that they lost this game. Anthony Davis went 4 for 14 from the field, which is 28%. He scored just 13 points. He did have a decent defensive performance as a whole, but he also allowed Xavier Tillman to have a game that he had no right to have, frankly. It seemed in part to me the plan from the Lakers to kind of ignore Xavier Tillman, and he showed that, hey, you can't really just completely ignore me. Ironically, it was something very similar to how the Grizzlies approached Rui Hachimura in Game 1, and he ended up burning them by hitting a bunch of three-pointers. Speaking of which, Rui was also awesome in this game. He had 20 points yet again. But it's something that happens in the playoffs often, is with how teams scheme, they kind of pick and choose which players they're going to really take seriously. And obviously they weren't just leaving Tillman wide open at the rim, but I don't think they took him as seriously as a role threat as they should have. He also got a three-pointer, and there were a couple of possessions where he kind of took it from the top of the key and drove it inside, or at least around there. And I just don't think that AD committed enough, and he realized that and was able to take advantage. He did have 5 blocks and played good defense on not his primary matchup, but the primary matchup going off is also a huge reason why this game went the way that it did. When the Grizzlies don't have Ja Morant, they need somebody to step up and fill that void to some degree, and they consistently have someone to do that. In this game, it ended up being Tillman. If the Lakers are going to be a contender, if they're going to be a team that can potentially make a deep postseason run, hell, if they're going to win this series, they need Anthony Davis to be reliably playing at a superstar level. And 4 for 14 and letting your opponent, who should be significantly worse than you, outplay you, that's just not acceptable, and it's not going to cut it. And if this type of thing is even remotely a consistent issue, this Lakers team will probably not even win this series. So, yeah, Anthony Davis has to be better. To speak to the overall game, this is the first time that I have ever seen LeBron James live. I've had multiple opportunities and never actually made it happen, but this time around, I got to see him, and he was pretty good. 28 points, 12 rebounds. He did have the worst plus-minus of all of the starters, but I can definitely attest that that was a matter of the circumstance of just when the Grizzlies would go on runs. LeBron was doing his best for sure. I don't think he's to blame for this game by any stretch. I did find one thing that I would criticize the Lakers for quite a bit was their approach offensively in this one, though. In Game 1, the ball moved around pretty well, and players moved around pretty well. Meanwhile, in this one, it was really, really stagnant. People were not moving much off ball, and it seemed like they were posting up LeBron James damn near every possession. It would either result in him trying to score himself, or very often him passing it into the paint, and whether it was Vanderbilt or Anthony Davis, they didn't finish particularly strong. Hell, Anthony Davis got blocked by frickin' John Conchar. Also, an absolute disaster game from D'Angelo Russell. 2 for 11 from the field. He scored 5 points, played 30 minutes. That's just not even remotely okay or acceptable. Just not a good showing from the Lakers here. I do think they will not let this game hold them down and continue to struggle. I don't think this is going to be like the first sign of things going sour, but it's definitely less than ideal to say the least. To talk about the Grizzlies side of things, again, I'm not going to talk about the Ja narrative. I just want to talk about how this team played as it did. As previously mentioned, Xavier Tillman, 22 points, 13 rebounds, 10 for 13 shooting from the field, including, again, hitting a three-pointer. And ironically, in spite of having Ja not there, you would typically expect your star players, or whatever, if you consider them to be on that tier, which I personally would, Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr., you would expect them to really step up scoring-wise, but Jaren was fine. He was 5 for 12 with 18 points, 42% from the field. Desmond Bane was 6 for 18 with 17 points, 1 for 6 from outside. Definitely didn't feel like he had it going by any stretch. Really didn't feel like anybody was particularly having some sort of microwave performance other than, ironically, Xavier Tillman. Dylan Brooks managed to put up 14 shots in 22 minutes because he's Dylan Brooks. Tyus Jones was steady as he always is. He wasn't as great efficiency-wise from the field, but he got 8 assists to only 1 turnover. Of course, assist-to-turnover ratio is like Tyus Jones, like the reason he's in the league to begin with. I also was kind of insulting to John Conchar in the first game. When I actually really meant more Aldama. I think I confused the two in my head, but you know, they both played and were solid enough. Another guy who was kind of hit or miss but definitely had good moments was David Roddy, who was defending LeBron a lot, and I don't know how well he really handled that matchup. I think the Grizzlies were taking the approach of he's a well-built, muscular, wide person, which, you know, hopefully means he can deal with the physicality of James, but, you know, that really worked out to be more of a theory than an actual truth. He shot 3 for 7 from 3, which was definitely nice, though, and did a serviceable enough job in the minutes that he played, which for the Grizzlies, a team that, as I mentioned going into this series, are kind of lacking in depth given all the injuries that they've had. Not having Steven Adams and Brandon Clark makes a rather huge difference. Having somebody like Roddy show up and be solid enough in the minutes that he gets is really key and really pivotal to this team going as far as they do still have the capability of doing. But they're going to need those players to step up consistently, and it's a little bit of a rough ask, but this Grizzlies team and the culture around it has shown consistently that they can get those performances out of players that are not typically expected to be key players, and so long as that culture persists, I think the Grizzlies are going to be pretty damn good for quite a long time, even if they don't end up winning this series or going far in the postseason. Definitely a lot of stuff to be proud of if you're a Grizzlies fan here. I love this series. It's probably my favorite series of the entire first round, partially because I quite enjoy this Lakers team, and when Ja is healthy, I quite enjoy watching the Grizzlies. No offense to the non-Ja Grizzlies, but they're not the most entertaining basketball team in the world. But yeah, that's my thoughts on this game, and that's it. Goodbye.